May I have your attention, please? The podcast World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment, is now on the air. May I have your attention, please? The podcast World Awakenings is now on the air.
This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Karl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things metaphysical and spiritual, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Karl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
We welcome you to the World Awakenings podcast. Before we start, we'd like to tell you about a special ebook written by the show's host, Karl Gruber. The 3 Pillars, a simple 3-step process to manifest positive and permanent change in your life. The concise 32-page 3 Pillars ebook will teach you how to become a successful and consistent co-creator of your life path with the law of attraction. Yes, you can manifest the life you truly desire, and the ebook is absolutely free. Simply go to Karl's website, karlgruberlifecoach.com. That's KARLGRUBER lifecoach.com. Click on the header title About Me and get the free download today. Karl Gruber's free ebook, The 3 Pillars, will positively change your life.
Hey everyone, it's time for episode number 43 of the World Awakenings, the Fast Track to Enlightenment podcast. Hi there, and welcome. I'm your host, Karl Gruber. In this episode, we are not messing around as our guest has some serious inspiration and a beautiful message of how to awaken to your true self and live your true purpose during your lifetime, and I can't wait to talk to him. Before that, let me tell you a little bit about him. An airline pilot, military veteran, transformational trainer and mentor, and a clear conscious channel for a group of ascended masters calling themselves the Round Table. Vince Kramer brings his unique experiences to the world of transformation and purpose-driven growth. Now, his experience in these stereotypically macho fields brings a more integrated perspective to the softer field of personal growth, not often seen. And as a speaker, teacher, guide, and best-selling author of Mastering the Art of Success with Jack Canfield, Vince's distinct combination of experience, education, and research helps him develop powerful talks, workshops, and online training to find happiness and success by living life by their design. A co-founder of the program Imagine Miracles with his wife, Mary, Vince passionately believes everyone is unique and the creator of their own life. It is his sincere desire to empower men, women, organizations, and families to find success and happiness by designing and creating a life fueled by their desires. Hey, Vince, welcome. That is quite a ride that you've had so far, Vince. It sounds like you've grown exponentially as a human and a teacher.
Well, first of all, thanks, Karl, for having me on. I'm so excited. It's nice to be on this side of the microphone. As a podcaster myself, it's nice every once in a while to be interviewed and to get to talk a little bit about really what excites me in life. And it has been a journey. My true spiritual journey didn't start till about 50 years old. So that first part of the military pilot, the airline pilot, most of that was before I was in my 50s. So it's been kind of 2 lives for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned, we were just talking before we started doing this, that you recently retired as a pilot, dedicating most of this time. But before we go there, I studied this on your website and from the information you supplied me. Can you give our audience a little history of how you overcame a really rough personal experience at age 50 to go on and become the person you are today?
Well, I'll share with you and the audience, Carl, that in Imagine Miracles and in the channelings with the roundtable, it's all come together to help me see the world in another way. And in helping me find my way, what I learned was that everybody has their own way. So our programs are a little bit different than a lot of people's. We help people find themselves. We help them find their own answers. I can teach everyone to be a really good Vince Kramer, but it's really learning about who we are, why we're here, and each individual finding those answers to move forward. And as you say, in World Awakenings, I believe, Carl, that we had to forget when we came to this earth to help us develop our gifts and talents to really help ourselves understand what our divine intent is in this world. And then we have little wake-up calls. And conscious ones in Imagine Miracles or crisis ones. Well, I'll tell you, from pretty much from 5 years old, I had a bunch of conscious wake-up calls, but I didn't listen to them. I knew life should be a little bit different. I knew there was something missing in my life. And I had learned so well from my grandfather how to be a man in the 1940s, 1950s way that, okay, if something's missing, I need to go out and conquer something. I need to go out and do one more thing. And I was very successful in my military career and in my airline career. I was in management in a Fortune 100 company. I was very successful in all those, but there was always something missing. But I never paid attention to the wake-up calls, the conscious ones anyhow. And then some crisis ones came in my life. And the three big ones for me was 9/11, first of all, which was a big wake-up call for everyone in our country, but in the world also. I actually flew one of those flight numbers 1 week prior. So if it would have been 9/4 instead of 9/11, it might have been me in Pennsylvania. But I didn't pay attention. I listened to what Grandpa said, and I pushed forward and figured out how I would have never made that mistake and moved on. And then in 2003, United went bankrupt. And in that bankruptcy, I lost 60% of my pay. I lost my full pension. I lost so many things. And it came down to, I lost faith in being honorable. I lost faith in doing your best and being taken care of if you do your best. But I still couldn't step out of the old way, the old set of rules, into a new paradigm. I couldn't step there yet. So I went out and I bought some pretzel stores. And for 3 years, I worked at these pretzel stores because these were going to be my retirement account. This was going to be how I did my job as a man and took care of my family. Unfortunately, Dr. Atkins wasn't too pleased with carbs during that time frame. And the pretzel stores took a big dip, and it took me 3 years to get them back up. And during that time frame, I was working 95-hour weeks at United and in the pretzel stores and just trying to keep things going. And my wife at the time was tired of waiting around for me, and she ended up having an affair, and that ended our marriage. She told me she wanted a divorce. And that was finally the wake-up call that slapped me upside the head and said, okay, it's time to start paying attention. And I went out looking for what was missing. And what I found was missing, Carl, was me.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, well said. That it is amazing what you said, that, you came in as a youngster, right? I believe you said at 5 years old, you knew what you wanted to do. And then you allowed the paradigms and the teachings of the world to pound that out of you or pound it back into you. And unfortunately, literally, we all go through that. And luckily for you, even though it was a rough experience that awakened you, many people go until they die, never waking up. But I think intuitively, we all know that there is something better than this. And unfortunately, that it has to take a rough experience like that to awaken. For me personally, and many times I've said mine has been a very, very slow awakening over the last 25 years, 30 years. And I keep saying, Spirit, I don't want to have to go through a catastrophe or a cathartic experience in order to awaken. So I found A Course in Miracles and the Law of Attraction, and that has really, really, and every day I wake up more and more and more. That's pretty amazing to me. Now, tell us more about your Imagine Miracles course and your website. I believe you co-founded that with your wife, Mary, right?
Yes, we did. Mary was my fourth wake up.
Yeah,
and that goes to show you that not all wake ups have to be negative. What happened was I just stepped from another set of rules. When I found out it was me that was missing, I found out through a program that I went through with Jack Canfield, the Chicken Soup for the Soul guy. Jack was truly my first mentor in stepping a little bit more into myself, a little bit more into spirituality. But I was still of the old mindset of build, put together, and find out what's successful and be what's successful. So I started being another Jack Canfield.
I like it.
My programs were all that I was putting together was all very similar. I had a book 60% written. It was called Zero to Mach 1, Accelerating Your Success.
Oh, nice.
And then Mary came into my life and she started talking spirituality. And that's the first time I heard spirituality talked about in the way that she did. So I was a Catholic boy. I was raised all the way through 12th grade in Catholic school. You know, I believe in God. I believe in the experiences of the one true energy. And at this point in my life, it doesn't matter to me what anybody wants to call it. But I never heard it in the way that Mary put it together for me. But I didn't believe her. First of all, I'm a scientist. Second of all, a Catholic upbringing, which some of the stuff she shared kind of pushed the edges on my Catholic beliefs. But the interesting thing is, because I was a scientist, or I am a scientist, as she was sharing the spirituality stuff with me, I started having books come my way. I started running into people who could be my mentor. And what I learned is that the science and spirituality are talking the exact same way. The language is just a little different.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that.
So Imagine Miracles is about bringing science and spirituality together. And one of the reasons that when you shared my bio, that I still have a military pilot in there and airline pilot and all the things that I've done in my prior life, I hope it gives me some credibility in helping people understand that even in the, as it says, the macho world, the world of do, build, that there is a place for spirituality for each and every one of us. And if we allow ourselves to step into that, we can find that we're truly living the reason we're here. What we're awakening to is why we're here, who we are, why we're here. But we've been living it all along and just didn't know it. And when we help people uncover what we call their divine intent, their why, at a spiritual level, we can take them back to every part of their life and show them that every job they had, every opportunity they had in a relationship, they were living their why all along, which is so exciting. So that's one reason we started Imagine Miracles. The second thing that Imagine Miracles has become, it's kind of, shall we say, evolved over time. As I was introduced to channeling, and that's a heck of a story in itself.
Yeah, I'd like to find out more about that.
But as I was introduced to channeling, what I realized was that we all have the ability to tap into this guidance, and we can do it in many different ways. So, although our first program helps people discover the true unique purpose of them, so it's not just the why, it's the who, what, and how, and why. When we help them figure that out, one of the things we do in the process is to teach them how to tap into their guidance in a way that they don't doubt it. So
Yes.
we use a lot of psychology methods, and I get certified in things like voice dialogue to help people on that journey, not just to talk to their higher selves or their trusted sources, but to also talk to their egos, because we live in a 3D world. And our ego personalities are part of that world. They're not going to go away. So we need to learn how to work with them and not work beyond them or push them aside. So that's the second thing that happened on the journey. The other thing about Imagine Miracles as a whole is it's not just about discovering. You have to learn how to create your life, and law of attraction comes into that hugely. But then once you know how to create it, how are you going to live it so you maintain the vibration to hold all those things that you learned you wanted in your life, because now you know why you're on this earth.
And mentioning that we need to learn how to create our own life. Unfortunately, most of the world haven't grown up in the same paradigm as we did, where it was all hammered out. You need to live this way, etc. We don't know that we can create our own life. We believe that everything is outside of us. That this has to come from somewhere else and not within me. I always speak to my coaching clients. You need to unleash your inner champion. It's waiting. It's been waiting there for you to awaken it. So I love that. It is time for each of us to awaken and know that we have the ability and the power to create our own life. I love that. Thank you.
One of the things, Carl, that I believe is missing, and why we don't understand this concept, is because we don't understand who we are at the spiritual level and how powerful we actually are. And then to realize that everything that we've done during our life, every circumstance that's shown up in our life, has allowed us to develop special gifts and to uncover talents. And we're all looking for our why, and we believe when we find our why that's going to open us up to all the magic. But what I found is we have to find the who and what before we find the why. And then when we have all three of those together, we stop wanting what we think we should want. Because I believe a lot of the reasons people aren't seeing the results of the law of attraction is because the things that they want aren't in alignment with who they are, which means, yes, you can work very hard to hold the thoughts, and you can work very hard to have the feelings that are aligned with those thoughts. But if it's not truly aligned with the full energy of you, of what you want, then it's very difficult to create. So once we realize that it doesn't matter what the magazines tell us we want, or what the neighbors got that looks like it makes them happy, and well, if I had that car, or if I had this, or if I had that life, I would be happy too. I have found when you really get down and uncover your unique purpose, that's only yours. None of the 7.8 billion people in the world have your unique purpose, that combination of gifts and talents, the process that you use. Now it's like, okay, well, if these are the things that I'm really good at, these are the things that make me happy, and I'm here to make this difference in the world, maybe my wants should be around those things.
And when many people get in a position like before you were 50, you had a great job, you had a beautiful home, a beautiful wife, and you're working your butt off, and they don't think they have time or to go look for that real self their real passion and purpose in life, and they forget that. And in your case, and so many as we people as we discuss, had to go through a hard time in life to find that awakening. But for a moment, I do want to go back. I'm really fascinated that you got to work with Jack Canfield. How did you get hooked up with him in the first place, and what was it like working with this icon of the modern spiritual inspiration and law of attraction world?
Well, one thing I want to share is everybody needs a coach. If you realize it or not, everybody needs a coach. And that was really my first step into the coaching world. And I've had lots of mentors and still consider Jack a big mentor in my life. The answer is my ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do whatever it would take to keep our marriage together. And she was always a Jack Canfield fan, not necessarily in Jack, but Jack's work. So she always had in her car cassette tapes. So now you know how old I am. But she had cassette tapes in her car, and she would run the cassette tapes on Self-Esteem and Peak Performance by Jack Canfield.
Oh, nice.
And I listened to him. I've always been into self-help. Since 5 years old, I knew I was supposed to be in this realm somehow or another. So I listened to him also. And the therapy world or the counseling world didn't work for us. So my thought was, well, Jack Canfield's got this week coming up, and it's all about living your life and the principles of success. And I thought, well, this would be an opportunity for the two of us to come together in a way that we could start moving forward together and kind of heal the past, but not live from the past, if you know what I mean. So I bought us each a ticket to this conference that Jack had, a 7-day Breakthrough to Success conference. And unfortunately, before I bought these early or late in the year, and it wasn't until June that this event was going to happen. And between the time I bought the tickets in June, my wife decided she didn't want to go, that it wasn't for her, or maybe she decided it wasn't for the two of us. So I ended up going by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And in that is where I found that it was me that was missing, and went out to find me. And Jack offered a program, and once again, it's good to go to these programs and learn at the base level what somebody has to share with you. But when you can step into a year-long program or a 6-month program with a mentor and a community, it really changes your life. And that's what I did with Jack. I bought into Jack's Platinum program and spent a year with 48 amazing people.
Wow.
And
Nice.
Really got to dive into me. And I think Warren Buffett says it best. The best investment you can make is in yourself. And I learned that in that investment with Jack.
Wow. And then ended up doing that book with him. That is absolutely wonderful. The other thing I want to go back and talk to, you mentioned this earlier, that spirituality, the spiritual icons of all of human history, and science now, specifically quantum physics, are now saying the same thing with different lingo. And one of my heroes, Lynn McTaggart, and then other ones, you mentioned you're a scientist, Greg Braden, Dr. Bruce Lipton. They're all scientists who have come together on the synthesis of spirituality and science. And I think what's good about that now is for most of humanity's history, the world goes, we want actual proof. We want this. This is all woo-woo, this is not. But now the scientists have done proven gold standard research that what the spiritual icons have been saying is true. It is real. There's a matrix out there of connection.
And through all of that, and that kind of goes back to why I said, it's sometimes it just takes some credibility to open those doors. So when you're a cell biologist like Bruce Lipton, and you start talking about cells and the environmental effect on cells and how that affects us in our day-to-day lives, there's credibility that starts to come in. And, how long's quantum physics been around? Since the turn of the 20th century. So
Yes, it has.
back in the early 1900s is when the quantum physics, and we're still not teaching it in our grade schools.
Right.
We're still not bringing that into our awareness, into our consciousness. So we're still operating from the lower consciousness. But as more and more people step into understanding the marriage, if you will, of science and spirituality, it's all one, right? So it's all one. Science and spirituality is all one. There is no good, bad, left, right, up, down. Science tells us that. Even spirituality tells us that. So I think we'll start moving more and more into acceptance. And, men are starting to talk about it. Men are starting to admit that they're channeling. And I think that's going to open some doors also along the way. And it's needed. First of all, we have to understand how energy works. We live in a 3D world. We can be as spiritual as we want to be, and we can live up here in the clouds, if you will. But if we don't understand energy, and if we don't understand energy in the 3D world, we're going to be in the clouds and not be able to operate on Earth at our maximum, at our best level. And I'm a firm believer, Carl, that we came into this world with our unique purpose. We decided what we were going to do, the difference that we were going to make before we came into this world. Well, if we don't know how to bring it to the world, if we don't know how to use the energy understanding of quantum physics, use the understanding of the universal spiritual laws, then we're not going to bring that difference to the world as effectively as we could. And we're all here to do that because, you might have to bring your purpose to the world and put your piece in the puzzle before I can even fit in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's our duty as human beings, as members of this planet, as spiritual beings, to fill in that puzzle so we're all living our unique purpose and we're all doing it in a way that supports others.
Well, you really, that is so beautifully put. Thank you for that. And, from my studies of A Course in Miracles is that each lifetime we come to is actually meant to be another forgiveness lesson on our journey to our ultimate awakening back to our true self. And so, yes, we come in, we decide before we get into this life a passion. But like I said, people like you're such a beautiful example that you didn't let that true passion slip by, that you've grabbed a hold of it and you've awakened to it. With that, I'm really curious about this. You mentioned earlier that you are now a channel of a group of ascended beings called the Round Table. How the heck did that come about? And the first time you ever did it, did it freak you out? So tell us some about the Round Table.
Well, if you don't mind, Carl, I'll spread the story out a little bit.
Okay.
So when Mary and I met each other like 10 years before we were both getting a divorce at the same time. So we knew each other, we knew each other's spouses. We didn't have a whole lot to do with each other, but we knew each other. And during my divorce, I was really, really having a hard time. And one of my friends said to me, why don't you call Mary? She's going through a divorce right now too. And maybe she can help you understand what your wife is going through. So it makes it a little bit easier for you. So I did that, and we became happy hour buddies, got together once a month and just talked to each other and shared what was going on and asked questions. And that's where the spirituality talk started. But a very interesting awakening, and this will kind of blow everybody's mind. And I've got two of those for this story. So Mary invited me up to Aspen in Colorado one night, just to kind of hang out in a really neat city and enjoy ourselves. But I had this event scheduled the next day that I was supposed to go to in British Columbia. And but we were getting to a point where we knew that there could be something more for us than just getting together for happy hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of felt like this might be my last opportunity, my last invitation to show that I could be interested in Mary in another way. So I went up to Aspen, and we had drinks. We had a good time. I hung out with her kids and her business partner, and we just had a great time. And we had a few too many drinks. So a couple tequilas in, and
that's why they call it happy hour.
and Mary shared with me that out of the blue, I see this little girl standing beside you. And this little girl looks like this. And she described the little girl in perfect detail: blonde hair, the dress she was wearing, the shoes she was wearing, the white stockings. This girl's like 4 years old. She described her completely. And so I said, well, what does the little girl mean? And Mary said, I don't know, and it went from there. But it was weird for me because she was seeing this, and this is something out of the norm for me. I think I was about 50 years old at that time. And it was like, what are you talking about? This is weird woo-woo stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I had enough to drink, and I cared about her enough to listen to the story. So I get up at 4:00 in the morning. I get in the car. I bust butt from Aspen to Denver to hop on the airplane to be at my event on time, not even knowing what this event was about. I had some friends of mine that I had met that said, oh, you really need to attend this. Let's buy into it. Here I am, a single guy, nothing to do but fly airplanes and teach people how to fly. So yeah, let's go. So I show up, and I find out this event is a 5-day event. And from 6 in the morning till 12 at night, all you do is answer the question, who am I? You sit knee to knee to somebody across from you. For 10 minutes, you ask them, and all they say is thank you through the process. Then for 10 minutes, they share theirs, and you say thank you. And then boom, you get up, you move to the next chair, and you do it all over again.
For 5 days.
18 hours a day. And what I learned from it was that I'm nothing and I'm everything. And there comes a time in that 5 days that you have that realization. And that's a very powerful realization. My body shook for like 2 hours when that realization came to me. And that was my true spiritual awakening energetically. I mean, it was in my body and it was never going to go away. But Carl, guess what happened in those 5 days? At least 5 times, somebody come up to me and said, there's a little blonde girl next to you?
Really? Wow.
And I said, could you explain to me what they look like, what she looks like? And every one of them in detail, the same detail that Mary shared, told me what that little girl looked like.
Wow.
So, okay, it's got my attention, right? Not totally out there yet, but it's got my attention. So usually at the end of those programs, I don't know if you've been to any programs that open you up that much. I'm sure some of Christy's programs open you up that much. But,
Yeah.
Well, at the end of program that opens you up that much, they take some time to close you back down so you don't go out in the world and get all messed up. Right? I didn't go.
Oh, you stayed out there.
I could get on an airplane whenever I wanted, because I could hop in the cockpit if I needed to, because I'm an airline pilot, right? So I could jump seat on so I went straight to the airport. As soon as the program was over except for that closed down part. I went to the airport, hopped on an airplane right back to Colorado Springs and said, Mary, we have got to meet. You got to tell me what's going on here.
Yeah.
So Mary shows up and we're having this conversation, and she tells me about the little girl. And for this story, it doesn't matter about the little girl, but at the end of the description and the end of her sharing, I said, where did all of this come from? How did you know this? And she said, I got it in a channeling. Well, I didn't even know what a channeling was.
Right.
So she starts sharing with me what a channeling is, and it's like, well, that's crystal ball stuff. And she said, no, it's not crystal ball stuff. This is what it is. And I, after my divorce, Carl, I said, I don't care what it is. If it's something that seems like it could be of help or interest to me, I'm going to do it.
So you open your mind and your heart.
Yeah. And after I do it, if it doesn't work for me, I'm going to let it go.
Right.
And that's how I start every one of my programs. I'm going to give you a new paradigm. You can decide if it works for you at the end of it, but keep an open mind till we get there. So that's what I did. I kept an open mind, and I said, I want to go to one of these channelings. And she said, are you sure? And I said, yeah. So she set it up, and her mother and I went to this channeling, and it was interesting. This lady lived in a really nice mountain home with a kind of an earth home attached to it. So it was a little weird. And we sat down and we had tea, and she asked me a bunch of questions, and I was feeling comfortable. And then she said to me, well, let's go get your channeling. I can channel for you 3 ways. I can conscious channel for you and let the energies come in and talk through me. It'll be just like you talking to the energy. I can get the questions that you have, and then I can just get the answers and give you the answers, or I can let you ask the questions and I'll share with you what their answers are. Well, I'm there for it. Let's do it, right? So I said, I want a full conscious channeling. Let's go. So we go back into this room, and we're sitting there, and I'm a man's man, a football player, the whole bit. And I'm sitting there waiting for these energies to come in. And all of a sudden it gets dark in the room. And I notice the clouds are coming over the skylight. So, okay, it's just the clouds coming over the skylight. It's no big deal. This lady says, okay, I'm going to go inside and I'll see you later. Not knowing what she meant at that time. And I kind of watched her change her body posture. Her facial features seemed to change a little bit. It's like, wow, this lady is a great actress. So I was constantly proving to myself that it wasn't real. It was nothing big deal. And all of a sudden, hello, young man, I've been waiting to talk to you for a long time. And it's like, okay, what's this? And the energy introduced himself as Archangel Michael, and spent about 35 minutes or so. I couldn't tell you because the time was nothing in it, but telling me about my life, why I was here, what I was supposed to do, why I experienced some of the things that I experienced. And just about through all of it, I was able to say, well, Mary knew that, or we talked about that when we had tea. So I was constantly justifying this energy being able to tell me about my life. And then Michael said to me, I've got someone else that wants to talk to you. Are you interested? And I said, sure, let's do it. So I watched this lady's facial features start to change some. Her posture changed. And she went from this really tough, stern energy to a very light and helpful energy. And the energy introduced himself as Archangel Raphael.
Wow.
And Raphael said, you are here to open hearts. You knew that from the time you were 5 years old. And what was the trigger for that is when my grandmother died when I was 17, She brought me into her hospital room and told me when I was 5 years old, I told her I was on earth to help people love themselves so they could love others. And when he said, you knew that from 5 years old, it was like, oh, he's talking about my grandmother and what she shared with me. So then he said, but to open hearts, young man, you need to open your own, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to help you open your heart, and I'm going to do it with red-haired, blue-eyed people. So I said to myself, okay, Mary knows that there's a bunch of red-haired, blue-eyed people that just came into my life. Her oldest is red-haired, blue-eyed. A couple friends that I had made just recently that Mary knew were red-haired, blue eyes. And it was like, okay, well, Mary knew this, no big deal. But then he said, as an example, do you remember walking through Walmart last week, and this little boy stood up in a stroller and fell out because he couldn't stop watching you, and his mom caught him before he hit the floor? That little boy had red hair and blue eyes. And it was like, oh my God, I have got to start paying attention to this, because the little boy knew it, the mom knew it, and I knew it. That was it. Nobody else knew that story. And it's like, okay, this is real.
Yeah.
I got to start paying attention. So now all the macho, all the whatever went out the window, and it's like, this is serious. This is about the rest of my life. So that channeling lasted 2.5 hours.
Wow.
I had a golf shirt on, and if you took that golf shirt off and just rang it a little bit, there'd be water running out of it, because the energy in me was so high, my body temperature was just out the roof. But before I left, Archangel Michael came back and said, we are going to share information with you to help you help people. And this information you'll be able to use in your programs, you'll be able to put into books, and we are going to walk this journey with you. So at night, if you wake up and you hear voices in your head, close your eyes and look up with your eyes closed. And if you see blue, it's Archangel Michael. If you see green, it's Archangel Raphael. If you see yellow, it's Ra, the sun god. And if you see red, it's a female energy, which I now know is Kuan Yin. For 5 years, that happened just about every night.
Wow.
I would be awakened, and this information would come in, and I'd write it down, and I'd go to the library, and a book would be right there for me to read with the exact words that they used. But what they told me is, you have to start all of this work that you're going to be teaching, and you have to be mostly completed with it before you start to teach. So you're the example for others. So it was a 12-year process.
12 years.
For me to put that all together. About 5 or 6 years into it, Mary came to me and said, Vince, you're an airline pilot. You're flying all-night flights. You can't be waking up at 2:00 in the morning and be awake until 10:00 at night and go fly a flight. You can't do it. Would you try to let the information come through you during the day so I can take notes, and you get the information during the day and you're not staying awake all night? And I finally said, okay, yes, I agree with you. It's not safe for me to be awake for 20 hours and go fly. And so that was my first channeling, and it was terrible. I choked and coughed and didn't believe that the voices were really coming through. And yeah, it was scary. It was like, first of all, who am I to let these higher vibrational energies come through? And that was part of my journey, to learn that we are all one. They're just a higher vibration than we are. So that went on for another couple of years.
Wait, let me ask this real quick. So your first channeling, were you consciously, I mean, you had a different voice from the round table coming through, but were you conscious of what was the process that was happening?
No, well, I was conscious, first of all, I had Mary put me in a very relaxed meditative state.
Mm-hmm.
So I was allowing the information to come through. The interesting thing is, unlike Christy, the voice of the round table is not any different than mine. There's no change in the voice. So their words are a little bit different. The speed that they talk at's a little bit different, but the voice isn't different. But what I noticed was words, 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 words. So words came into my head, then they came out of my mouth. So that was the only process that I recognized, that I heard it all, and then it came out. Are you familiar with Paul Selig?
I am not. No.
Okay. Paul's a channel, and it's very interesting when Paul channels, the words come in his head and he says them as soon as they came in his head, but then repeats them afterwards. So he's kind of using both processes in there. So if he said, welcome, I'm here to talk to you today, right after that would say, welcome, I'm here to talk to you today. So he's got similar process of what happens for me.
Interesting. Okay.
But what I'll share with you is that, I've been channeling a long time now and quite regularly. And I've learned to allow the vibration not to affect me. I've learned to get out of the way of the vibration. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, right.
So I still can't open my eyes because the vibration's too high. But I don't seize up or cough in my throat when I can't handle a new energy coming through. So Mary gets me started on this channeling, and then I have a coach. Here comes another coach story. My coach said, when are you going to start showing up authentically in the world? And it's like, what do you mean? I am showing up very authentic. And she said, well, when are you going to channel? She said, that's part of your gifts.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to bring all your gifts and you're not being authentic. And it was like, okay. So then I started slowly but surely channeling for different people and opening the door. One of the good things about being an airline pilot is I learned how to compartmentalize really well. So I can get out of the way of these energies with no problem.
Yeah. I just want to clarify, you had mentioned a couple times Christy, and we discussed this before we came on, that Christy Whitman, who is a very famous law of attraction teacher, my coach, one of my mentors, and she now channels the council, and they have been on World Awakenings. And your roundtable I had asked you earlier if they could show up on the show, but you mentioned that they usually only speak for long periods of time. So maybe we can do that in the future. That would be awesome.
Yeah, it would be great. Let me share with you why they call themselves a roundtable.
Okay.
Unlike a lot of channels I know, the whole group of energies show up. So when I say the whole group of energies, I believe we're all energy streams, and we all represent all these energy streams. Well, these energy streams are there in the round table, but the ones that show up for an individual channeling, so let's say I'm going to channel for you, Carl. It would be your guides that sat down at the table and your higher self that sits down at the table for that channeling conversation. It's not like I only bring in this certain group, or I only bring in Archangel Michael, or only bring in, it's your guides and your higher self that sit down. And they said, we want you to call us the round table because we want everyone who sits at the table with us to know that we are equals. Mm-hmm. So we are going to rely on King Arthur's round table concept for everybody to understand that. So that's why they call themselves a round table. And it's interesting for me because it's quite a shift in energy from the Ascended Masters talking as a group, and then when your higher self comes through, because your higher self isn't the vibration of that those higher groups of the masters. So it's interesting for me, my body kind of goes through a sine wave, if you will, of energy when the higher self comes in to talk compared to when the masters are sharing with you.
Wow, this is just some phenomenal stuff, and I don't want to take up a ton of your time. I try to keep this around an hour. I do want to ask you a couple quick things here. You are a coach, among other things, with a beautiful program, Imagine Miracles. Whether you're doing one-on-one coaching or with groups, what's the biggest challenge you encounter when you're helping them to transform in a positive, productive, and loving manner? What's the biggest challenge?
Well, the biggest challenge, well, there's two sides of the challenge. One, people find it hard to believe they're as magnificent as they are.
I love that.
I
Yes.
mean, they find it hard to believe that they're truly an energy stream of source energy, which means that they have unlimited possibilities, unlimited capacities, and there's a reason why they're here, and nobody else is like them. So I have trouble there, because until you believe that, it's hard to get them to step through the doorway into their magnificence. The other thing is, we live, as I said earlier, Carl, in a 3D world. We have a set of belief systems, and we have ego personalities that were developed to keep us safe, happy, loved, fed. And as long as we were those, we were willing to follow the old beliefs. And when we didn't feel safe, or we felt like we couldn't control something, we developed an ego personality. Well, that ego personality is there to protect you. And it believes it's there to protect you, even though now you have a fully capable reasoning mind and you don't need protected. So what I find is that we get working on uncovering all the possibilities, and how to bring those possibilities into reality for people. And while they're concentrating on that in the present moment, they're sabotaged by a belief system, or they're sabotaged by one of their ego personalities. And so many people have taught that you just shut your ego down, you shut your subpersonalities down, you move beyond them. But that doesn't happen. They're a part of you, and they stay a part of you. So it's learning not to push them aside, not to get beyond them, but to get them on your team, to get them to realize that what they protected you from in the past isn't needed, but can you use the same skills that you used to protect me to help me on this journey? And that helps us get through that second barrier that I see happening.
That's interesting, because I have a couple credos, and I mentioned this earlier. When I work with my clients and do classes and things, I try to get people to do what I call unleash your inner champion. Your champion's been waiting for you to awaken to your, as you said, I love that term, magnificence. And the other one of my favorite is ordinary people can accomplish extraordinary things, which when you contemplate, that means we're all extraordinary. But you're right, we forget about it, and yes, that is a challenge. And another thing is most people don't feel worthy. They don't feel worthy of having their greatest dreams, and if they're truly magnificent, of course they're worthy.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And we've been told that we're not worthy, and we've been told, one of the saddest things about the human race, there's two ways to make yourself look good if you're coming from an egoic place. You either do whatever you can to outshine everyone around you, or you put the other person down so you look better than them. And what we've done through all of that is just, one, shut ourselves down, because we're affected by the same energy that we put out to everyone else. But we're shutting down everyone else around us too. And who knows, that person that you shut down tomorrow might have the gifts and talents to help you live your gifts and talents more fully the next day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've been talking to Vince Kramer, just an amazing, inspirational person with all kinds of great information to help us all awaken to our true magnificence. I love that. And Vince, I'm going to finish off this program with a question I always ask. Despite the chaos we see on the nightly news, and the craziness of the global pandemic, why do you think that now, more than ever, the people of the world are awakening to all things enlightening, spiritual, and loving?
Well, I'm a firm believer, first of all, in universal energy and the energy that's come together to create us and to create change. And universally and energetically, the earth is in that space to move into the next phase, if you will. And you can look at Eastern religion, you can look at all of the Mayan calendar and everything. Everything's been telling us that we're coming into a time of great awakening in our world. And it's obvious in the energies that aren't ready to awaken. There's a lot of deaths in our world where the energies are moving on. But the biggest thing for me, Carl, that shows we're in a time of awakening is the chaos that you're talking about. Because if you look at the energy of the universe through quantum physics, the energy unfolds and becomes material, and it enfolds and goes from material back into energy. Whenever there's a huge transformation and there's a huge change in the energy, there's a huge change in the paradigm, it creates chaos.
Yes.
So the chaos that we're experiencing in the world shows us that we're in that transformation, and it's time for all of us to wake up and be ready to step into the new paradigm.
And I've also discussed this with some of my past guests. When this chaos happens, people like you and myself and all my other guests, it makes us step up our game and open up to help those people to awaken and find their magnificence and everything. So despite the chaos and the craziness of the world, there's this whole other paradigm, this whole other section of the world that is stepping up their game into the light and the awakening. And you're one of them, Vince. This has just been awesome. What a wonderful conversation. Thank you for the beautiful energy and the information you share and the help you do with the world. How can people find you online and connect with you? I'm sure a lot of people would love to do that.
You bet, Carl. First of all, thank you so much for allowing me to share with your audience and to help me and give me an opportunity to share my divine intent with the world. I truly appreciate that. I would like to offer the first 5 guests that are interested in really delving in and looking at how they could live their life their way. I'd like to offer the first 5 people Your Life, Your Way breakthrough session for free.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we charge $500 for, and I want to give it to your first 5 guests. So if they go to imaginemiracles.com, all one word, /world-awakenings, that opportunity be available for them. I'll also give anybody who wants it a copy of it's called Your Life, Your Unique Purpose Blueprint. So we'll give them a free blueprint to anybody who wants. And we talked about Jack Canfield, so there'll be an opportunity to download a chapter out of the book if they're interested in that. Awesome. So imaginemiracles.com /World Awakenings. Look for Imagine Miracles on Facebook, imaginemiracles.com for our webpage. And of course, you can always look for Vince Kramer on Facebook or the social media platforms to find out what I'm doing.
Wow, that's an awesome offer. I might have to be first in line for that. That's beautiful. All right. Thank you, Vince Kramer. You are an amazing human being. Hopefully, maybe next time we can get you come on with your buddy Mary. That would be awesome. So.
Awesome. and our buddies, the Roundtable.
Oh my gosh, that would be, yeah. We'll take an hour to talk to them. That would be enlightening. So thank you, Vince. Love you, man.
You too, Carl. Thank you for having me on.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber, a certified law of attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in each and every episode of this podcast, World Awakenings, as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that all the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things metaphysical and spiritual, and just how they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment everyday life. Much love and light to you, my friend. Thank you for tuning in.